Most people think muscle loss after 65 is just aging, but what if it's actually a treatable metabolic condition? In this video, I'll show you the exact nutrition and timing protocol helping seniors rebuild strength even in their 80s. Okay, hi everyone. My name is Marc Bates. I'm a metabolic health coach. This is one of my highlight presentations. It's on seniors are reversing muscle loss and the protocol doctors ignore. Okay, let's get into it. So seniors are reversing muscle loss with this protocol. Most people accept that losing muscle mass after 65 is inevitable. Medical professionals call it sarcopenia. Families watch their loved ones grow frail. The conventional wisdom suggests this decline is simply part of aging. The research reveals something very different, though. Sarcopenia is not an inevitable consequence of aging. It represents a metabolic condition driven by anabolic resistance, where muscles become less responsive to growth signals. This resistance stems from hormonal shifts, poor protein absorption, chronic inflammation, and insulin resistance. The breakthrough lies in understanding that muscle loss accelerates not because of age itself, but because the cellular environment becomes metabolically compromised. When insulin signaling breaks down, muscle loss accelerates. When mitochondrial function declines, protein synthesis slows. When chronic inflammation persists, growth signals weaken. Clinical research demonstrates that seniors can rebuild muscle mass even in their 70s and 80s through specific nutritional interventions. The key involves overcoming anabolic resistance through targeted leucine intake and metabolic optimization. Okay, so let's talk about the cellular mechanism behind muscle loss. Anabolic resistance represents the blunted ability of muscle tissue to respond to anabolic stimuli, particularly protein ingestion and resistance exercise. This condition drives sarcopenia, but emerging research shows it can be reversed through dietary interventions. The process begins with mTOR signaling dysfunction. In healthy muscle, amino acids, especially leucine, activate the mTOR pathway, which triggers protein synthesis. In aging muscle, this signaling becomes less responsive. Research shows that leucine threshold requirements increase significantly with age. Young adults need approximately 1 gram of leucine to stimulate muscle protein synthesis. Elderly adults require nearly 2 grams to achieve the same response. Several factors contribute to this resistance. Chronic low-grade inflammation interferes with mTOR signaling and protein translation. Splenic extraction increases, meaning the liver and gut consume more dietary amino acids before they reach muscle tissue. Insulin resistance impairs amino acid transport into muscle cells. Mitochondrial dysfunction compounds these problems. Aging muscle mitochondria produce less ATP and generate more reactive oxygen species. This disrupts protein synthesis, energetics, and triggers catabolic pathways. The inflammatory environment in aging muscle elevates cytokines like TNF alpha and IL-6, interleukin 6. These molecules inhibit mTOR and increase myostatin, a protein that blocks muscle growth. They also impair satellite cell activation, which is critical for muscle fiber repair and growth. So, why leucine functions as the master key? Leucine serves as the primary amino acid that directly activates mTORC1, the master switch controlling muscle protein synthesis. This amino acid functions like a cellular ignition key. Without sufficient leucine, the growth machinery remains inactive regardless of total protein intake. The mechanism involves leucine binding to cestrin-2, a cellular leucine sensor. When leucine concentrations reach the threshold, cestrin-2 releases its inhibition of mTORC1. This activation triggers a cascade of protein synthesis machinery, right? gets some system revving. Age-related leucine resistance occurs because muscle cells develop a higher activation threshold. The typical requirements show young adults need 1.7 to 2.5 grams of leucine per meal, while older adults may require as much as 3 to 4 grams per meal. Okay? This resistance develops through multiple pathways. Decreased mTORC1 sensitivity to leucine reduces the cellular response. Blunted amino acid transport limits leucine entry into muscle cells. Elevated inflammatory cytokines interfere with anabolic signaling cascades. The solution involves providing sufficient leucine to overcome this resistance while supporting the cellular environment that enables effective utilization. So, there is an easy answer. There's a bunch of whole foods that overcome anabolic resistance. Most seniors consume protein sources that fail to deliver adequate leucine for optimal muscle signaling. Conventional recommendations focus on lean proteins like chicken breast or skim milk, which provide insufficient leucine density and lack supporting cofactors. Whole eggs represent an exceptional leucine source with unique properties. Each egg contains approximately half a gram of leucine, meaning 3 to 4 eggs provide the threshold needed for muscle protein synthesis activation. Research demonstrates that whole eggs stimulate 45% more muscle protein synthesis than egg whites alone. Despite identical protein content, the egg yolk contains phospholipids, cholesterol, and micronutrients like choline and biotin that support mTOR and mitochondrial health. Beef liver provides exceptional leucine density at 2.5 grams per 100 gram serving. Beef liver contains concentrated micronutrients including vitamin A, B12, zinc, iron, and copper, all crucial for mitochondrial function and mTOR regulation. The nutrient profile in liver supports muscle stem health and reduces inflammation, both essential for overcoming anabolic resistance. Liver also provides carnitine, which enhances fatty acid oxidation and supports energy production in muscle tissue. Other high-quality leucine sources include ribeye steak at 2.2 grams per 100 grams, wild salmon at 2.1 grams, and lamb shoulder at 2 grams. These foods provide leucine alongside supporting nutrients that enhance muscle protein synthesis. The research evidence for muscle rebuilding. Clinical trials demonstrate that muscle rebuilding remains possible even in advanced age when anabolic resistance is properly addressed. The evidence spans multiple study designs and populations. The Optimum trial studied men over 65 with low physical function. Participants received meals containing 0, 10, or 20 grams of essential amino acids for 6 months. The groups receiving amino acid supplementation showed increased lean mass, improved leg strength, and enhanced walking speed. The improvements were dose dependent, with the 20-gram group showing the greatest gains. Mitchell and colleagues studied healthy men aged 70 to 85 years, comparing protein intake at 1.5 grams per kilogram body weight versus the standard RDA of 0.8 grams per kilogram. After 6 months, the higher protein group gained 1.3 kilograms of lean mass, improved leg extension strength and power, and showed reduced muscle breakdown markers. A study of frail elderly patients with a mean age of 82 years used leucine-enriched whey protein plus light resistance training. After 13 weeks, participants gained 1.1 kilograms of lean mass, improved gait speed and chair rise ability, and reduced their frailty index scores. Research by Drummond and colleagues measured muscle protein synthesis rates and mTOR pathway activation in older versus younger adults. Initially, older adults showed blunted muscle protein synthesis and mTOR signaling. However, when protein doses were optimized with sufficient leucine, muscle protein synthesis was restored to young adult levels. These studies demonstrate that anabolic resistance represents a dose-dependent and reversible condition rather than a fixed consequence of aging. Yes, it is there, but let's talk about a daily protocol for muscle prevention. You actually have to work at this a little bit, okay? Implementing this approach requires systematic attention to leucine intake, meal timing, and supporting metabolic factors. The protocol centers on achieving 3 to 4 grams of leucine per meal from whole food sources. The morning meal should prioritize high leucine, nutrient-dense foods when mTOR signaling is most responsive. An optimal breakfast includes 3 whole eggs, providing 1.5 grams of leucine, 2 ounces of beef liver, adding 1.6 grams, and 1 ounce of aged cheese, contributing 0.7 grams. This combination delivers approximately 3.8 grams of leucine plus essential cofactors. Now, if you don't like beef liver, fresh that you could eat, you can take beef liver pills that are basically freeze-dried beef liver, and they work great. And that's my preference personally. The midday meal should provide the largest protein and caloric load. A sample lunch includes 5 ounces of ribeye steak for 2.8 grams of leucine, 1 to 2 sardines adding 0.9 grams, and if you're not eating carnivore, some limited vegetables prepared in animal fats. That would be primarily tallow or butter. This meal supports midday strength training and provides sustained energy. An optional evening meal should emphasize easily digestible proteins and anti-inflammatory fats. Wild salmon or eggs with once again, if you're not eating carnivore, some mixed vegetables, right? If you're eating ketogenic, be very careful which ones you're adding here. Because remember, if you're eating ketogenic, you want to have your total carbohydrates under 20 grams a day. Okay, so let's not do a lot with the vegetables, right? Okay, so the wild salmon and eggs with cooked vegetables, this provides adequate leucine while supporting sleep quality and avoiding digestive burden. Meal spacing should allow 4 to 6 hours between eating episodes to permit full mTOR pathway reset. Constant grazing blunts mTOR response and disrupts satiety signaling. Now, the evening meal is optional. If you're doing timed eating, right, intermittent fasting, breakfast is really important. So if you're one of those people who don't eat breakfast, start eating breakfast and eat lunch. And remember, lots of eggs in the morning for breakfast. It's the best breakfast you can do, especially as you're aging. Okay? The total protein should reach 1.6 to 2 grams per kilogram. You're taking in a lot more protein than most people tell you to do. But remember, you're trying to break through that leucine barrier that your aging body hits, right? So you're trying to get over that minimum threshold. And you want to distribute that across 2 or 3 meals. 2 would be preferred for most people because you're trying to also keep your you want that fasting time frame so that your body resets properly. Okay, timing strategies for optimal results. Meal timing becomes crucial for seniors due to age-related changes in circadian rhythm, insulin sensitivity, and gastrointestinal function. The protocol should front-load protein and calories earlier in the day. That's why I once again said morning. If you're not used to eating breakfast, get used to it. That's when you need it as a senior. Okay? You want to front-load your protein in the beginning of the day when physiological systems operate most efficiently. The eating window should begin between 7:30 and 9 a.m. Assuming you're getting up, let's say about 8:30, right? Something like that. And should conclude no later than 6 to 7 p.m. This timing aligns with natural circadian rhythms and supports optimal nutrient utilization. Morning represents the period of highest mTOR responses, so this is when you really want to make sure you get plenty of leucine and plenty of protein. So I really do eat lots of eggs in the morning, right? 3 or 4. And most efficient protein digestion occurs in the morning. This makes breakfast the most critical meal for muscle protein synthesis activation. Evening protein consumption should be minimized due to reduced gastric motility, blunted mTOR sensitivity, and potential sleep disruption from elevated thermogenesis. Okay? Heavy meals late in the day can impair sleep quality and reduce growth hormone release. So, if you're younger, for many of my younger clients, yeah, I like skipping breakfast and maybe having a late lunch as their one meal a day, or if you're going to eat 2, maybe a heavy lunch and a light dinner, right? But get your intermittent fasting, get your 16 hours of fasting in there. But if you're a senior and you're looking to rebuild your muscle, get the protein in early and move your 16-8 window so that you're eating in the first 8 hours of your day, not in the last 8 hours of your eating window. Okay? So, let's keep the timing in there. It's very important. Okay, resistance training. Resistance training amplifies the effects of leucine-rich nutrition by sensitizing muscle tissues to growth signals. The minimal effective dose involves 2 to 3 sessions per week, focusing on functional movement patterns. The training should emphasize squatting motions for sit-to-stand function, hinge movements for posture and lifting, pushing actions for daily activities, pulling exercises for balance and carrying, and core stability for overall function. A sample routine includes chair squats, wall push-ups, resistance band rows, and stability exercises. If you belong to a gym and you're not quite sure what to do here, ask for some help there. Most gyms have very good coaches who are really good at helping you build a routine specifically for this. Okay? The optimal timing pairs resistance training with the largest protein meal of the day, typically lunch. This maximizes the anabolic window when muscle protein synthesis rates peak following both exercise and leucine intake. Training intensity should be moderate to challenging, but not to failure, right? We're not, unless you're a bodybuilder, and there are people in the senior bodybuilding circuit, your goal here is not to build to failure. You're just trying to work enough to get the muscles wanting to build more muscle mass, okay? The goal involves stimulating the muscle adaptation while maintaining safety and sustainability. Okay? All right. Addressing implementation challenges. Several obstacles commonly arise when seniors attempt to implement this protocol. Understanding these challenges and their solutions improves adherence and outcomes. Poor appetite represents a frequent barrier due to age-related reductions in stomach acid, slower gastric emptying, and decreased hunger hormone production. Solutions include starting meals with bone broth and sea salt, breaking larger meals into smaller portions, consuming 30 to 60 minutes apart. We're not talking about grazing a lot here, but you might want to do 2 breakfasts if that's going to be one of your big meals, right? If that helps. But more importantly, emphasize nutrient-dense, low-volume foods as opposed to foods that really don't provide any nutrition no matter how much of it you eat, right? So really carnivore, if you're a senior, carnivore is the best way to go. It's the most nutrient-dense foods you can eat, okay? Digestive concerns may emerge when transitioning from low-fat to higher-fat, protein-rich meals. The adaptation period typically lasts 7 to 14 days as digestive enzymes adjust. Supporting strategies include digestive bitters before meals, ox bile supplementation, and including collagen-rich foods like bone broth. Okay? I like having bone broth in my morning coffee. It's mostly bone broth and less coffee, but it's still, the whole idea is I get that in the morning. Okay? Also, think about digestive enzymes, especially if you think that you're not producing enough acid, which happens when you get older. I take a digestive enzyme every day just to add some additional enzymes and some acidity to my gut. It does help. Family resistance often stems from outdated concerns about cholesterol and saturated fat. Education about current research, monitoring relevant biomarkers like triglycerides and HDL, and framing the approach as a short-term experiment can reduce this opposition. But the reality is, all the evidence points to the fact that older adults with higher LDL have higher or have lower mortality. They live longer. Okay? So it's actually good for you. Contact me or look for my videos on the current research and all the studies done showing that the concern on LDL is completely misplaced. Okay? Implementation overwhelm occurs when attempting too many changes simultaneously. Okay? A gradual approach works better. Adding one element per week, such as morning eggs first, then resistance exercises, then maybe adding some liver incorporation, and finally meal timing. Right? Take it slowly. Do it at a pace that's good for you. Okay? Just start doing it. That's the main thing. All right? All right. The other thing you have to do is challenge dietary misconceptions. Okay? Especially if you're like me, you're in your 60s, and you grew up with all of the garbage that came down from the government, the Heart Association, the American Diabetes Association, the USDA with their food pyramids and all that stuff. All garbage, completely garbage. Okay? Decades of dietary guidelines have created persistent fears about cholesterol and saturated fat that prevent seniors from accessing optimal nutrition. Current research contradicts these concerns and supports the safety of whole food animal products. For most people, approximately 75 to 85% with dietary cholesterol has minimal impact on blood cholesterol levels. Right? Your doctor probably doesn't even know that or tell you that. It doesn't matter what you're eating. Your blood cholesterol is actually a factor of your liver. Okay? These individuals are classified as hyporesponders. The remaining 15 to 25% may experience increases in both LDL and HDL cholesterol, but without increased cardiovascular risk due to favorable particle sizes. And once again, if the HDL goes up, which is good, that points in the right direction. Large-scale studies, including the PURE study of 135,000 people across 18 countries, found higher saturated fat intake associated with lower stroke risk and no increased heart disease risk. Okay? All this garbage that they've been telling you about, don't eat saturated fats, is garbage. It purely is. The 2020 Cochrane Review concluded that reducing saturated fat had no significant impact on total mortality or cardiovascular death. Eat your saturated fat. It's good for you. Whole eggs and organ meats provide nutrients that actively support cardiovascular health. Choline supports methylation and reduces homocysteine levels. Vitamin A maintains endothelial integrity and reduces inflammation. CoQ10, especially from the yolks of the eggs, supports heart muscle function and reduces oxidative stress. The real cardiovascular risk for seniors include refined carbohydrates that elevate triglycerides and insulin, industrial seed oils that promote oxidized LDL formation, chronic inflammation that impairs nitric oxide function, and sarcopenia, which this whole thing's about. That reduces your metabolic reserve because you're actually losing muscle mass over your entire body. Okay? Eat your protein, eat your saturated fat, eat the animal stuff. It's really good for you. All right. Beyond muscle building. This protocol delivers benefits extending far beyond muscle mass preservation. Muscle tissue functions as a metabolic organ that influences insulin sensitivity, inflammation, cognitive function, and longevity. Muscle serves as the primary site for glucose disposal, making muscle preservation crucial for metabolic health. Adequate muscle mass improves insulin sensitivity and reduces diabetes risk. The tissue also produces beneficial compounds called mitochondrial that support brain function and reduce systematic inflammation. The approach supports mitochondrial biogenesis and function, which impacts energy production throughout the body. Improves mitochondrial health, enhances cognitive performance, reduces fatigue, and supports cellular repair processes. Nutrient-dense animal foods provide compounds that support neurotransmitter production, hormone synthesis, and immune function. These effects contribute to improved mood, sleep quality, and overall vitality. The resistance training component enhances bone density, balance, and coordination, reducing fall risk and maintaining independence. These functional improvements often matter more than muscle mass measurements for quality of life. Okay? Did you get all that? This is important. This is you living your life fully to your 70s and 80s and longer, or sitting in a old age home and wondering why the children aren't visiting you. You don't want that. Okay? We're going to redefine aging and possibility. This protocol and this total approach represents more than a nutritional intervention. It challenges fundamental assumptions about aging and human potential in later decades. The conventional model views aging as inevitable decline requiring preservation strategies. The metabolic model recognizes that much of what we attribute to aging actually represents reversible metabolic dysfunction. I'm going to say that one more time, okay? The metabolic model that I teach recognizes that much of what we attribute to aging actually represents reversible metabolic dysfunction. This perspective shifts the focus from preservation to regeneration. When seniors can rebuild muscle mass, regain strength, and improve function, it changes how society views older adults. Instead of seeing them as burdens requiring care, we recognize them as resources with untapped potential. The implications extend beyond individual health to community design, healthcare systems, and intergenerational relationships. A society where 80-year-olds remain strong, sharp, and active looks fundamentally different from one where decline is expected. Research demonstrates that epigenetic factors including diet, movement, and environment override genetic predisposition. Daily choices matter more than inherited traits for determining health outcomes. Most falls, fractures, and nursing home admissions trace back to muscle loss and malnutrition. Addressing these root causes preserves independence and dignity while reducing healthcare costs. The protocol offers a pathway from dependence to vitality, from decline to growth, from resignation to possibility. When we realize that later decades can represent a time of continued development rather than inevitable decay, we reclaim aging as an opportunity rather than a defeat. This represents the new biology of aging. The research exists. The mechanisms are understood. The interventions are available. The only question is whether we will apply them. All right. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you have questions or comments, if you want details on this protocol, put it in the comment section. Let me know what you're looking for. Okay? Also, if you want me to cover more stuff in detail, and by the way, I have a series of videos following this one which will show each of these little steps in good detail for you, okay? This is just the first one. If you notice the way I do things, okay, there'll be a whole series of Q&As after this. Put that in the comment section. And as always, if you haven't done so, like, subscribe, and share this video, especially if you know anyone who's starting to get to that, late 50s going into their 60s and they're concerned about this, or you have relatives who are starting to thinking about retirement and they're worried about being able to keep up. Well, guess what? Send this to them. Let them live until they're 80 or better in full vibrant health. It's the best thing you can do for them. Thank you very much.